You're listening to TehachaPod with Key Budge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
It's TehachaPod time again. Key Budge, Greg Garrett, Corey Costello. Guys, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you, Key.
Good as can be, man.
Yeah, for sure.
We've kicked off season 3. We didn't mention it in the last episode, but last episode was our debut of season 3 of TehachaPod.
Dang, it seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Should we start putting I think a lot of shows now do season 3, part 1 and part 2 to get people to hang out longer? I don't know. Maybe we should do that.
We do. Well, so what we do is we describe it season 1, 2, and 3. So we're season 3, and then episode 1 was last time, and then overall it was episode 118. So
nice.
Today is our 119th episode. We're going to talk about something special. We did something at our recent city council meeting, Greg. We made a proclamation. And that's not something that we do every month. It's not something that happens, all the time. So this was something special.
Yeah, Key, we don't do proclamations very often, but when we do, we take it very serious. And in this case, it was a proclamation for Kern County to honor the system where you can safely surrender a baby within 72 hours of birth. And I know we have a great guest today, so I'm excited to hear about the details associated with that.
We have a returning guest today. Jana Slagle, our communications manager for the Department of Human Services. Jana, welcome back to TehachaPod.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. Love talking to you guys.
We had you on, I think, in season 1, brought you back in season 2. We've talked about the holiday cottage. We've talked about the overall human services. But today, you had told us, hey, we're going to ask the city of Tehachapi to do this proclamation about safe surrender. And not just city of Tehachapi, you've also done it for the county of Kern and the board of supervisors also, correct?
That's correct. We just did that today, in fact. So yeah, the reason we do the proclamations, and thank you guys for doing that, the city of Tehachapi, the reason we do that is just to increase the awareness about the safe surrender baby law so that people in crisis know that they can surrender a baby up to 3 days of birth at into the arms of any fire station or emergency room staff. So the mama or the person surrendering has up to 14 days to reclaim the baby if there's some change in their life and they realize they do have help or something changes, they can reclaim the baby. And if not, if they don't reclaim the baby, then that baby is in an adoptive home goes to a family who has been waiting to adopt a child. So it's a really, really good law that's goal is really to save babies from abandonment.
And at the council meeting, Division Chief Andrew Kennison was there to represent the fire department and the partnership collaboration with Human Services with the Safe Surrender program. And he threw out a few statistics that were mind-numbing.
It was actually, I couldn't believe it. I think he said 6 babies had been surrendered.
90 babies have been safely surrendered in the county since they started tracking in 2006, and then 6 in 2021 alone.
That is,
Correct.
I cannot
Isn't that
imagine
amazing?
the circumstances around surrendering a baby. And I'm so happy that you and your staff are there, and the ER departments and the fire departments can be a positive part of such a terrible time for someone. Save a life. They're saving a life.
Yeah, they are. And actually, since we printed our press release, there has been one additional baby. So for 2022, there has been one safely surrender. So that brings our total to 91 now. So 91 babies have been safely surrendered in Kern County since 2006, like you said. And I believe 6 of those babies were reclaimed. So that means the person came back and their circumstance changed. And when that happens, we make sure that they don't need any help. We make sure the baby's going into a safe situation. But that's why the law is written that way, because sometimes people can do something in a crisis moment that maybe something changes for them. So yeah, so we're happy that the fire department is a main partner with us. We do see most of the babies have been surrendered actually in the hospital. So the family that joined us today at the Board of Supervisors meeting, we had a family join us, and their baby was surrendered actually in a hall ambulance. So the mama knew right when she was delivering the baby that she was going to surrender it. So lots of different situations that happen.
I'll tell you, it takes a lot of courage for these young women to make that decision, because there can be the wrong decision made, and we've seen that in the news recently. Jana, you and I talked about that a few weeks ago. What occurred? Was it New Mexico?
Yeah, New Mexico. It was really sad to see. And, there's cameras everywhere in our world. So they were, able to capture the picture of the young woman putting the baby in the dumpster. And you had to, even though it's a heinous thing, you still feel what was going on in her life, that she had no other option, or she didn't realize she had another option. And I think it made me, as the chair of the coalition, just even more aware that we have to make sure people know that this is just a better option. Why would you do that when you knew that this was an option? So I feel sad that she either didn't know about it, or, for whatever reason, that seemed like her only option. It was very sad, but the baby did live. So we're happy for that.
And is that a state by state, or is this a federal program?
It's a state by state.
And how many of the 50 states, do you have any idea how many states?
Every state has one. Every state has a law, a
All
safe surrender law. Some of them are called Safe Haven.
Okay.
I've seen them called the Moses Baby Law.
Mm-hmm.
So, but every single state in the United States has a safe haven or a baby surrender law. Each state can, everybody can do it a little differently. Like, some states are up to 1 month you can surrender a baby. Some are actually up to a year. In California, our law it started in 2001, and then it was enacted a little bit later. But our law is up to 3 days of birth in California.
And you have to go to think too. I mean, going back to those times, it's a life-changing experience when you bring a child into the world, and you need a lot of support, and you need a lot of help from people, and some people don't have that support, and they may even be going it alone, and that shock, that initial shock of, now I have this second human being that I'm responsible for. I think a lot of the time folks are just, I can't handle that. They're not prepared for it mentally. That moment.
It's true. You're right. And interesting to me, when we started looking at different, even counties, like Los Angeles County is so huge that they're able to publish more information about the types of people that surrender babies. And they found the age group, or the demographics, is from age 14 to 40. So I found that one really interesting, because I think in our minds, we think that they're always teenage women, but some of the studies that I read showed women in different cultures who either got pregnant when they weren't married, and certain dishonor in certain cultures that caused them to feel they needed to surrender the baby. So there's so many different reasons: domestic violence, even poverty. So there's a lot of reasons that women, feel like they need to surrender their baby, and we're just happy that the law allows someone else to care for that baby.
Yeah, there is a solution out there.
There is a solution, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if a mother makes this decision and approaches the fire department and says, I want to, give up my baby, then the baby's obviously taken into protective custody and checked for health. And then, are there additional services that may be offered back to the mother, so that way she can get help if she needs it? Or what is there? It seems like I bet you there's a little bit more that completes this loop.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good question. And the tagline for this law that California came up with, the state, is no shame, no name, no blame. And so the idea behind it is really that people feel safe, that it's anonymous, completely anonymous, that you can surrender your baby and your name is not taken. We do offer the surrendering party the option of completing a medical questionnaire, so that the people adopting the baby have some medical history. But most of the times, what we've found, when someone surrenders, they don't stick around for additional assistance. They're, in a crisis, and they just want to, make sure the baby's safe. So there's not, but of course, if a person wanted help, absolutely, there would be help available to them. If a woman goes into a hospital, for instance, and delivers a baby and then realizes she doesn't want to keep it, the social work staff there provide a lot of options. There's relinquishment, which is different than safe surrender, and just they're provided all the options. So they're cared for in that way. They're given all the information.
And so, question for you:
Yeah.
Do you have to be the mother to surrender? What if, you're a young couple and this happened to you and the mother just is, can you be the husband or the boyfriend and bring the child?
Yeah, I think that question comes up a lot. And I think that this is one of those times where it's the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And so if a baby was surrendered by someone else than the mother, I believe that they would receive the baby. And then if there was some unusual situation, we would probably look into it. Mm-hmm. So, but I think that there's so many scenarios that could happen, but most often we see the mother being the surrendering party.
Yeah, I would expect.
Yeah, it makes sense that you'd want to make sure that the baby is safe regardless of how it was received.
Exactly.
And then you can kind of go backwards from there, but let's put the baby in the safest situation it could be in.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, you mentioned earlier, cameras are everywhere, and they are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the mom might not want to be ever seen because of a certain culture.
Right.
I'm not going to be on their camera. And so she'll ask her boyfriend or friend, maybe another girl that's in her circle that would bring the baby.
And that's a great point to bring up, Greg, because like you said, when you've got different cultures that are involved, then maybe it is that it's a male that brings the child in. It's about the safety of the child. Put the child first, and then everything else can get filtered out.
So the answer is anyone can bring the child.
Right.
Okay.
And there's so many scenarios I'm thinking of when you say that, so that I can't imagine that someone would take a baby and surrender it that didn't have their best interest at heart, but the world's a crazy place. So we've only seen it used in a good way here in Kern County. And so we'll just hope for that to continue,
It's definitely one of those things where you think about it and it's like, as a parent and a grandparent, you don't, it doesn't kind of come to mind, but it's like, there are situations that make it incredibly challenging.
It's an intense first 72 hours. I mean, it really is. If you're not mentally prepared for it, it can be, and you don't have any support structure around, you don't have grandparents, you may not have a significant other with you. I can see how some people could really make that drastic choice. And this would be a better drastic choice as opposed to abandonment or something
life
worse.
Happens, and hormones and chemicals, and it's just such an emotional roller coaster, even on the best of times,
Yeah, well, I'm a brand new grandma myself. My son and his wife just had a baby. He's just almost 4 weeks old. And I think, just like you were saying, how could you just can't fathom that. But we have a great support system and a family. And there are people that are just not in that situation where it's terrifying, so this isn't just one of many options, which we just hope it saves lives. So we did see a situation, I think you probably remember, in Shafter a few years back, where the baby was not safely surrendered and did not live. So every time we hear these stories, we just want to do a better job of letting people know. And, people that are on the street, maybe just different people in all different areas of life, we want them to know that this is, no shame in it at all.
And you mentioned earlier, and I think it's important to hit home, is of the 9 babies that were surrendered last year, 6 of those moms
last year
came back and said, okay, no, my head's clear. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to become the parent of this baby. And they took that opportunity to come back.
Yeah. So that's since 2006. Okay. I believe 6 have come back. And 6 were surrendered just last year, but from 2006 to now, 6 were reclaimed. Mm-hmm. So over that period of time, but I think that makes sense that they wrote the law that way. I like that.
Jana, let's talk a little bit about the actual event at that moment. Yesterday, before the city council member, I reached out to Edward Martin. He's the COO of Adventist Health Tehachapi Valley, and texted him and said, does Adventist Health Tehachapi Valley have a safe surrender program? I wanted to make sure that I was fully prepared for the city council meeting. And he jumped back and said, yes, do you have a baby? And I'm getting my team ready. What's up? And I felt a little, I didn't mean it that way. I was just making certain that you're ready to rock and roll at our hospital here in Tehachapi. And he was, He was
on
gathering his team, like, turning on the red light, getting ready to accept that baby.
I love that.
So that really made me feel very, very good about the situation. Now, at the fire department, we can safely assume, I believe, that all firefighters, because who knows who's going to answer the door. If you go and knock on the door, you just walk in, you're gonna maybe find a junior fire engineer. Has he been trained to accept that baby? How does that work?
Yeah, so the coalition that we have has all, Kern County Fire, Bakersfield City Fire, and all the hospitals in Kern County. So they all have information or access to information of how the law works. And so we work real closely with the fire department, and they're very aware of the law. They're equipped to know exactly what to do. Same with the, and how it works. There have been, I think, 1 or 2 babies safely surrendered through the fire stations in Kern County. And so they basically take the baby they call the ambulance. The ambulance takes the baby to the hospital. So they know that it's their role just to, greet that person with no shame and take the baby. And then after that, the baby goes to the hospital and is cared for. And then the baby comes into a foster home that is prepared to adopt. Right. So yeah, that's how that process works.
Okay.
Yeah, Greg, you were talking about and Jana was talking about the coalition as well. So it's a group of dedicated individuals, and then the agencies, nonprofits, hospitals, and stakeholders. So First 5 Kern Family Healthcare, Kern County Fire, Bakersfield City Fire, Adventist Health Hospitals, Bakersfield, Delano, and Tehachapi, Dignity Health and Mercy Memorial Hospitals, Kern Medical, Bakersfield Pregnancy Center, and Kern County Right to Life are all part of this.
It's a large coalition, yeah. And a lot of good people in Kern County just care about families and babies. This county is awesome. I've lived here 22 years now, and I love that it's really a pretty big, good size county, but it feels to me so small town because people care, and there's just a lot of generosity with needs. And so we do see the coalition sharing our information, making sure they get the word out. It's really a great team of people.
And this is one of those things where this happens a lot, in this line of work, so to speak, but it's one of those programs you're like, gosh, I wish we didn't have to have this, but I'm glad we have it because it is, there are those 6 babies this past year, and then the total, over 90 in the last, since 2006. So it makes a difference in that life, obviously. And it's one of those things where you're like, gosh, I wish we didn't have to have it, but I'm sure glad that we do.
That we do. Yeah. And what's neat to see is the families that do adopt the babies, because we get to meet them and just hearing their stories. The family that shared at the Board of Supervisors today, the daddy is a BPD officer, and the mom, they have other children as well, but just the joy on their face, seeing that little guy with them today. The little boy was with them, and they're just so grateful. And so that child gets to grow up knowing they're so loved. So it's a great outcome.
Now, October was National Adoption Month. Is it? Am I right?
November. Yeah, November.
And how did that go for you?
Really good. I believe we had a huge event at the juvenile court in Bakersfield, and I think the total being adopted that day was over 30, and those included children being adopted out of foster care and private adoptions. So private adoptions could be, a stepfather or mother adopting a child, or an international adoption. So it was a great day just seeing those families together. And adoption is just so much more, I don't know, it's just the tears in the people's eyes. They have been waiting for this process. They're so grateful. It's a wonderful thing to see.
And what is your website address? I know there's so much information that you guys have available with all the different departments, but I know specifically about adoption, you can even take a deeper dive into the Safe Surrender program.
Yes. In fact, we added something to our website to just this week that you can find any location to safe surrender baby throughout the county. We've identified all the locations. So our website is kcdhs.org, Kern County Department of Human Services.org. So we have that on our front page right now. You can click on the little tab and it'll show you a map of all the locations throughout Kern County where a baby can be safely surrendered.
That's great information, and we'll make sure that here on TehachaPod we'll put a link to your website right there, so that way people can go to it. And then beautiful thing about podcasts is you guys are in the planning stages of your own podcast, and that's got to be exciting because you can take a topic like this and you can really take a deeper dive than what we can, because you've got all the internal experts and things that you've got in-house. So where are you guys at with getting your own podcast launched?
Yeah, and thank you for guiding us. We appreciate your input. We have come up with a name. We had a little internal competition, and our name is The Heartbeat of Human Services. That's going to be our podcast name. And we're just coming up with our intro and our outro and, all of that kind of stuff right now. And our first topic, we're probably going to be interviewing a family that has received a safe surrender baby. So we're excited. We're hoping to start in the next week or so. We have all our equipment. So probably not as fancy as yours there, but we're starting slow, and we'll get it going.
I don't know if this stuff came out of Key and Corey's garage to start. So we're just kind of kludging it together.
Former employers might have saw a few pieces missing.
Right.
But you'll learn, Jana, as the podcast goes, you'll find an audience for it that's looking for that information, and it just grows. It organically has been, for our experience at least, is that with the messaging and the topics and the guests like yourself that bring something and share information that people normally might not look for, and we expose them to it. So, good luck with that. I know it's gonna do really well. And
thank you. Thank you for helping us.
Oh yeah, it was our pleasure. Anytime anything you need, just give us a holler. But the amount
thank you guys for pitching in for our holiday cottage. We appreciate that too. You financially assisted us there, so we are grateful for that.
We're happy to do it.
Yeah, that spoke to us. That was an easy one. As soon as we heard the conversation, Greg and I looked at each other and says, "Yeah, we'll make it happen." So, but Jana, anything else that we want to talk about that maybe we haven't touched on today?
I think that's the majority of the safe surrender. Just thank you for directing people to the website, and just remembering that people in any sphere of your influence could be in a crisis situation. So the more people know about this option, the better. You just never know when someone's going to need this information. So we're glad to be sharing it. Well,
we appreciate your time.
Well, you guys are doing God's work, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate that, you guys.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jana. Well, you have an open invitation. Anytime you guys have a topic that you guys would like to talk about, help get the word out, we're happy to help do that with you. And as our community partners, we appreciate all the time and effort you guys put in there at the Department of Human Services, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you. And we love Tehachapi, so thank you guys very much.
Well, that was Jana Slagle, Department of Human Services, and Jana's been on the show before. But that topic, before we've talked about, helping with their holiday cottage and kids that are in the adoption and protective services program. This was another aspect of keeping our kids safe and giving young mothers an opportunity, if they're contemplating, are they doing the right thing, or what should they do with their newborn? Here is a place to make sure that child stays safe.
I mean, let's be honest. That was a tough topic, and I hope everybody listened to from beginning to end during that interview, because, like I said earlier, life happens. You never know, and if people need help, we need to reach out and help them. And we have a process now where they can, there's a way out potentially.
And this all came together because Department of Human Services had reached out to the city of Tehachapi about considering a proclamation for Safe Surrender Month. We did that at the council meeting, and we had the fire department there as a representative and one of the partners of the program. But there we covered a lot of other business at the council meeting. So, Greg, you want to recap a few of the topics that took place?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, and remind everybody, the listeners, call me, and if you don't get the agendas, please sign up to get the agendas, and we're happy to discuss any and all of these topics. But council authorized us to form an underground utility district. That's a fancy term for putting the power poles underground, taking them away from the aerial, and that's on Valley Boulevard, from Curry Street going west to Las Colinas. So we're really happy about moving forward with that project. That'll be a couple years once we work with SCE. Thank you to Kern County for donating some funds, city funds, and we're going to underground those utility poles there on Valley. So super excited about that. Our redistricting efforts continue to move forward. We have 4 public hearings. So on Monday night, we had number 2 of the the 4. And so we're excited about moving that forward. And
now with that, because we did that a couple of years ago, but there's a reason that it's right back to the topic.
Because of the census.
Yeah, we didn't have a huge change in population to the old districts compared to what is happening now. But when the 2020 census came out, they changed the census blocks a little bit. Well, the law requires that every census block be in the same district. We've got a couple districts that, because the new census blocks, we're dividing a census block. So they had to make a little bit of shift to make those legal. But at the same time, there was really no major change in population to one district or the other. There was a few adjustments that had to be made. But at least what we saw from the first proposal, it's not a huge change in any district lines at all.
Little tweaks here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but bottom line is it didn't come. It's not our choice to do it. Right. We're required to do it whenever the census is done. So the original districting came apart in between 2 censuses. Yeah. So that's why it seems so close.
So we won't touch this for another 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
And change. So.
Yeah, unless there's some giant changes, but don't expect that. And then Senate Bill 1383. This is the organics, and I'll let Corey talk about this a little bit. He's been heading this up. It's very complicated, but we want to assure people that we have it managed and we're controlling it. And
yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it's one of those unfunded kind of state mandates that's coming down saying you need to add a 3rd bin for green waste, and it's not just green waste thinking, oh yeah, well that's great, lawn clippings and tree trimmings. Well, no, they want you to take food compostable food waste and put it in this bin too to keep methane out of the landfill. So anyway, we've had to do a bunch of things, and technically everybody was supposed to have this adopted and in place by January 1 of this year. Very few municipalities across the state that didn't already have a program have added this program. Instead, we're having to do a lot of paperwork, adopt ordinances, let them know that we plan to do this eventually, but like right now financially we're not prepared to do it. We don't want to pass this on to a ratepayer. We don't want to create the extra work and the extra trucks on the roads and the pollution from trucking the stuff from here to Shafter to get. So there's a lot of paperwork though that's had to be done in the process. This was one last night, and it was actually to get us some grant money to go back and study some of those things I talked about. To study, is there going to be space available in a lot of the places for these 3rd bins? And the thing I'm trying to reiterate to people is I had a great conversation with a resident the other day who called about some space limitations was, look, we're not looking to do this tomorrow. We had to adopt the ordinance, and it's been on the agenda a few times, but that was just to let the state know, hey, we're working towards this goal one day. But, we're looking at a timeline of 2023, 2024 potentially, if not longer, to before we implement something like this, because there's a lot of moving parts that, unfortunately, the sort of one-size-fits-all approach from the state doesn't fit in Tehachapi. It doesn't fit in a lot of areas. So we're working just kind of sort some regulatory compliance at the same time without having to do it. So I just wanted to reiterate folks on that. And last night's authorization was to allow us to get about $20,000 in grant funds from the state to study some of these things and work with residents about implementation of this at some point.
All right. We also welcomed Hamad Jones, our new finance officer. So really excited about Hamad starting, and he's hitting the ground running. That's for sure.
He is, and also let's say a big thank you to Hannah Chung. Mm-hmm. Hannah spent over 22 years dedicated here to the city of Tehachapi, leading that department, an award-winning department. And I can't believe that Hannah's last day was just a few days ago, and we welcome Hamed. But boy, I'm going to miss Hannah. Just with the fact that she would, stop by and always have a smile on her face, the apples, the peaches, that she would bring in. And I know, she's still here, but it's like I don't get to bump into her in the hallway anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And then trees. We're planting a lot of trees in the city of Tehachapi. We've talked about this several times, Key, on Valley Boulevard, up in South Curry, and Tehachapi Boulevard, if you haven't seen the trees, man, make a point of going to look. They are amazing.
That's a game changer on
It's a
Tehachapi
game
Boulevard.
changer.
I mean, the Curry medians were too, because it was something for a while we were looking at, but the amount, I think because it's a long straight run on Tehachapi Boulevard along that Class 2 bike lane that was built a few years ago, it's a wall of trees, and I just can't wait for them to all bloom year or two, get a little bigger. That's going to be a heck of a drive in and out of the city.
I'm really excited that we're planting a lot of oak trees. Mm-hmm. So we're bringing back the oaks to Tehachapi. Super excited about that.
Phil had mentioned in his comments about that, back in the day before the railroad was here, you could ride from one end of Tehachapi to the other, and
That's what they say.
And never have sunlight hit you because of all the shade of the oaks, and the railroad came through. I didn't realize that part of the history that, but it makes sense. The railroad needed lumber. It's close. They took it, and now here was an opportunity to bring oaks back.
There you go. So we've planted over 400 trees. So it's a very exciting project, and we're committed to maintaining them, and they're gonna flourish, and it's gonna be just beautiful. When you drive into town, it's gonna be very prideful. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I tell you what, coming down that stretch of Tehachapi Boulevard as I did the other day, and just seeing them, lined up, and the guy's still working, putting stuff in, I was like, this is going to be cool. You now it's one thing to see the renderings of what it's going to look like, but when you physically start to see, all those trees, they're lined up, you've got the irrigation that's in place, then you can kind of visualize the future.
Yeah, and this was an air quality grant type deal, so that's why everything's a 15-gallon or below tree at this point. We couldn't plant a bunch of mature trees because per the grant and per the science of it all, it's smaller trees during their lifespan, convert more more CO2 into oxygen and all that good stuff. So that's why they wanted the smaller trees.
Breathe easy.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, guys, anything that we want to talk about that's coming up event-wise, or stuff that's out there, or are we just going to
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Don't forget your sweetheart.
Yep. Right around the corner. Plenty of nice little date areas around the Tehachapi
There you
area.
go. A lot of wineries are having special events. So, yeah, if you haven't been out to a winery lately, go ahead and take advantage of that.
Well, we invite you to send in your show thoughts, comments, an idea for something. Just send us an email, media@TehachapiCityHall.com, and we'll be happy to see what we can do and run with it, and go find a guest and bring them on the show and talk a little bit deeper into whatever that topic is. That's media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We appreciate your time, and we'll catch you again soon on TehachaPod.
TehachaPod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of TehachaPod.